1. My wife and I were watching TV in our upstairs bedroom a couple of hours ago when we heard an abnormal crash bang downstairs. I promptly got up and snuck a look over the half wall at the top of the stairs and didn't see anything. Then I heard the doggy door. My initial thought was that it was one of our two cats, since I know they like to go on adventures sometimes. But when I looked down at the cat tower at the bottom of the staircase, they were both snug in their beds. I was fairly spooked, but I knew I had to go down there and check it out. I walked very slow and quiet, listening for any more noises along the way. I made it down the stairs and through the hall towards the living room and turned on all the lights. In that moment, the sprinkler system went off in the backyard, which I figured was just an odd coincidence. So I continued walking through the living room into the kitchen, scanning for anything out of place. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, until I noticed the door to the pantry was wide open. This creeped me out. I had just been down in the kitchen half an hour earlier to get some tapioca from the fridge, and I'm entirely sure that door was all the way closed. I shut the door and looked around in slightly more of a panic. I went over to check the backyard through the blinds and I didn't see anything unusual, though the motion sensor lights were on. I chalked that one up to the sprinklers coming on, since I didn't see or hear anything else out there. After another quiet minute, I turned out the lights and went back upstairs without any answers. Fast forward 45 minutes from that point. My wife had just gone to sleep. All of a sudden, I started to feel like the bed was moving under me for a second. It was like there was something beneath it pushing up on the frame right under me. Our dog was moving around, trying to get comfortable in that moment, so I thought it was plausible that it was a ripple from him plopping down, and I was just a little creeped out from earlier. 15 minutes before I started writing this, it happened again, this time for a few seconds longer. I thought it might be one of our animals under the bed grooming or whatever. I saw Doggo was still at the foot of the bed, now fast asleep. But I didn't see the cat. She's a different cat from the two downstairs. This one likes to sleep in our room. I pulled out my flashlight app to see where she was, and I saw her passed out in her bed under the TV. This is when I actually started to panic. I don't want to believe there's something in our room messing with us, so I've been looking for any way to rationalize it. I began looking online for any blips on the Richter scale. I knew an earthquake was a far-fetched scenario where we live in Texas. I've been here my whole life, and in 35 years I have never felt a single one. Though with how this year has been, nothing would surprise me. I checked a few sources. Everything looked quiet, and I was out of ideas. I'm too afraid to look under the bed right now, and the only thing I could think to do was write about it. As I was typing this sentence, I heard a loud noise from the ceiling right above where I had seen the orb last week. It sounded like someone dropped a bolt onto the ceiling from the attic. I know that's not possible since there's insulation, so maybe it was just your average creak in a house. Even if it was at least twice as loud as I've heard anything like that while living here, I don't know how I'm going to get any sleep. Something has felt slightly off all night, and I have a serious case of the heebie-jeebies. 2. Back when I was young, around 8 or 9, me and my brother used to mess around with each other, as we both believed in ghosts at the time, and we both just fed into this belief. He would shut doors and make screams at random times in the night. Eventually I figured this out and just sort of gave up on the whole ghost thing. He continued fucking with me for a while, and I stopped it altogether. One day, we were both chilling upstairs doing who knows what, when we heard multiple doors slam shut. No squeaky slow shut, full-on slam. At least 3 doors as well, all in rapid succession. We were scared shitless and ran downstairs. As our dad checked upstairs, of course he found nothing. I asked my brother how he did it. He said he didn't do it, and asked me the same question, and obviously I didn't do it either. Now even more scared than prior, Later, we went back upstairs to get ready to sleep. We heard a squeaky door shut slowly, and we yet again ran downstairs. I looked up at the railing of the stairs. I don't really know how to describe it, honestly. It was a railing looking down on the ground floor, and saw black boots walking along the top of my view until they went past a thicker column and disappeared. As I sat in bed, I could hardly think about sleeping. I was so terrified of what I saw. That night there were no sightings, no voices, no doors, just squeaky boots. Walking back and forth down the hallway connecting to my room, back and forth, squeaking for hours until it ended. Next night rolls by, same thing, squeak, squeak. This went on for multiple days. I don't remember the details, until everything paranormal just went away. Fast forward around 15 years. Current me. I live alone in a small apartment. No obnoxious neighbors. I've been happily at home for a while now. Got to know most people in my complex. It's sorta a small place. I go to sleep one night and the room is abnormally cold, but just my room, no other in the apartment. I shrug it off and grab an extra blanket. Laying in bed, I heard a squeak, squeak, squeak. I see a small shadow walk by from under my door. I keep my lamplight on in the separate room, so that's why I could see a shadow. I jump out of bed and flung open the door. No one there. No noise. Just silence. I look around my room. No open doors or windows. No unlocked doors or windows. The only trace of anything even being there were the black boots. No way in hell they were mine, sitting to the left of the door, the way they were walking. At this point, I'm terrified again. I take the shoes and throw them in the corner of the main room after putting them in a plastic bag. I go back to bed, barely get any sleep, but nothing out of the ordinary from then on. Waking up the next morning, I peel open the plastic bag. Absolutely nothing inside it. Now I'm actually going to become a hermit. I haven't seen anything strange happen in the past 2 days before making this post. We'll update if anything changes. If anyone has any similar encounters, or if you know anything I can try to get whatever it was away from me, let me know. And if you have any questions, let me know too. 3. Alright, long story short, I've had a ghost at my house for months. It was one I could communicate with. I'd say something, the host would play with an electronic, like flicker light for yes, don't for no type of thing. I knew all along the spirit was probably evil. The only reason it let me start talking to it and controlling it was because I started talking about evil and Satan, and I told it, look, I don't care if you're evil. Just don't break anything or hurt anyone and you can stay. So it stayed. Some days it'd get pissed and start flickering lights until they almost went out. Most days if I asked it to stop it would, but others I had to yell at it. It's also been screwing with my computer the last few days. A few weeks ago it started switching it on for no reason, but the last few days it turns it on and off all the time. Especially when I get up at night and return to the bedroom, it's like boom, computer's on now. But the spirit never caused me any problems, or anyone else. For some people, it'd react to their presence, flickering lights and playing with electronics in a basic way, beeping the microwave or washing machine if they were near. I'd just say stop, and it'd stop. Then last night my nosy fucking friend had to get involved. My friend who has a little friend who is a faith healer. To break it down, her friend is a faith healer, bunch of strangers online say he's legit, church says he's legit, my friend's been healed a ton by him and is like a different person, so yeah, whatever. Last night, for no damn reason, every light in my house starts turning on, almost going black, then flashing back on again. I thought it was just my bedroom, so I moved my gym bike. It leans near the light switch. But it kept going, so I was going to go turn the light off at the control box. But the hall light was doing it too, and every other damn room I went in. Gradually, it started to flicker less. I thought it was because I was yelling at the spirit, but I eventually got bored and said I could do it at once, and I went back to bed. It eventually slowed to the point it stopped. And this morning, motherfucker comes along, proudly struts into my house and announces last night she had her faith healer on the phone, getting rid of my spirit. She said each time he restarted his prayer, the flickering she could see through the window was less and less until it was gone. This morning, the room the spirit hangs out in, the most, was dead. No light flickering to greet me, no electronics beeping. And it felt really empty, but also really cold. I rarely had cold spots in the house when the spirit was here, but now the entire place, except my office, is freezing. The door to my office is open right now, and the cold coming in against my leg is ridiculous. So maybe it relocated to just my office, who knows. But we'll see. And I want my damn spirit back. I liked having a blatantly haunted house with a spirit I could talk to without apparitions. I hate apparitions. I haven't had close contact with any spirits in years, not since I worked in the paranormal. Update. Spirits stayed away most of the day. Then I went into the room it started in, and lights flickering. The lights stopped when I asked. I did some chatting away, to no response. Later in the day, the light is calm again. The next visit, lights flickering, but only a little, and unresponsive to questions, but responded to the greeting in the usual flicker pattern. Also turned my PC on twice. I heard it across the hall from my office. So this spirit is trying to come back, I think, but struggling. 4. So when I was younger, I used to see, hear, and witness a lot of weird and possibly paranormal things. Now, my mom is super spiritual, and I think she's always been that way. In the past 5 years, she's sort of influenced my view on the world. I don't know if this is really important, but weird things have stopped happening around me in the past 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. I have dozens of little experiences, but I'll keep this short for everyone's sanity. To start, when I was a toddler, my parents, older brother, and I all lived in a house in what was a cute suburban neighborhood. It's all older now and not as modern. It was a nice house with a huge backyard, or so it seemed to me in my tiny 4-year-old body. Though we had a creepy neighbor who had a great view of our yard from his deck in his backyard. His house was on the corner of a street, meaning the yards were perpendicular. Well, in the fence separating out backyards, there were small holes, as one would expect from actual wood, not fake stuff that most tables are made out of. I used to like to peep through a hole in the fence. This guy had 2 large dogs that would often jump the fence and run wild in the neighborhood. Several times my brother, nephews, and I would have to run past his house, because his dogs' heads reached well over the top of the fence. It was rare that his dogs were quiet and seemingly nice. Well, one day the entire family were out back. I was doing kid stuff and ended up looking through the hole in the fence. I saw a girl who looked a lot like Shirley Temple sitting next to one of the dogs. It was really weird. It wasn't like she was far back on the deck or something. From how I remember it, it was like looking through a paper tube. It's hard to explain, but there was nothing around the girl and the dog. It was just them. I was more amazed in a childish way than freaked out. In my toddler mind, I was probably excited about the neighbor having a little girl who I could potentially befriend. Now we get to skip about a decade and a half. Back in 2016, my mom and I were living with my grandparents. My mom, brother, and I had gotten out of a bad situation the year before, which left us in the basement of my ex-stepsister's best friend's family's basement. Yeah, it's a mouthful. According to the family, the house was haunted. The oldest daughter had experienced some things, such as someone sitting at the foot of her bed at night. I never did, and I honestly can't remember if anything paranormal happened. Most of the weird things that did happen could honestly be chalked up to paranoia or something else. Like I said, we moved in with my grandparents. It was late 2016. My brother moved in with his girlfriend of the time, leaving Mom and I to stay with Grandma and Grandpa. Once again, we were stuck in the basement. The situation at hand took place during the summer of 2017. The greatest part about being the youngest in your family is being able to stay home alone while everyone else goes out to work. I decided to stay at my dad's house for a couple of weeks, as a sort of vacation. My dad is a chill guy, so he doesn't expect much. Plus, it was good to get out of a crowded, tiny home. 5 people in a 2-level house that is practically a townhouse, not fun. My dad did live in a pretty busy neighborhood with loud neighbors behind the house. Again, this might not be exactly paranormal, but I'm convinced it's something. It was nearing the end of my stay at my dad's, and, like usual, I was left alone with only the bird and dog for company. I was sitting on the couch, watching TV and writing, when the doorbell rings. I know, it's such a normal thing, but it was odd. I wasn't too immersed in my writing that I wouldn't have heard someone walk up to the door. In fact, the dog should have heard whoever it was, too. I checked out the windows first, which had a great view of the front steps. No one was there. No cars parked out front or in the driveway. I knew I wasn't going crazy because the dog reacted to the doorbell too. She didn't growl, but she did a little and stood up. I took a few extra minutes to check around the house to make sure no one was around. I ended up chalking it up to a prank, probably from the kids who lived behind us. Another few days passed by, and I'm back home, having completely forgotten it. Until it happens again. Once again, at home, my mom's. I'm all alone with just the animals. Then the doorbell rings. The dogs react. I get up and check out the window. No one is there. I wait a minute to see if it's a salesperson, and if they'll walk away. Nothing happens. I check another window, same results. At that point, I remember what happened at my dad's, and I'm freaking out a little. I actually checked with my dog to make sure he heard it too, and that I wasn't going insane. Like I said, it might not be paranormal, but it's one hell of a coincidence. My mom thought it might have been my guardian angel trying to tell me something. Don't know what the doorbell ringing could possibly tell me, but okay. I'm going to jump back a few years, before we moved back into the city. Yes, we moved out to the country. Again, this takes place during the summer. So my ex-stepdad was a real jerk. That's being very nice about it. Anyway, during the days us 3 kids were at home all day, we were expected to stay busy all day. That was actually how it was all the time. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, we're expected to just keep moving. So for me, it wasn't entirely uncommon to feel a little anxious when I sit down for an hour during the day. As most kids and teenagers would, we ignored our chores well until the last minute, for the most part. It was around either 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and my brother, stepsister, and I had all gotten sucked into the TV. We were just about to get started on the chores when something caught our attention on the TV. All of a sudden, my mom called for us a very clear, "Kids!" being shouted from upstairs. We all shout back, "Coming!" and race upstairs. The freaky part is that my mom wasn't home. We checked everywhere for a good while, checked the bathroom, the garage, driveway for her car, the barn, even the front of the house. My mom didn't get home until an hour later. That is one of the most baffling things I've ever experienced. All 3 of us heard my mom call for us. To me, there's no way to write it off or debunk it. 5. I've always believed in the paranormal, but I've never really been interested in experiencing anything, and maybe I don't have a choice. My family has always believed in ghosts, and my mom has experienced spirits roaming her home, speaking to her, and all of that fun stuff. So I guess there is a history of paranormal events in my family. But there isn't a history of sleep paralysis, which I have once in a blue moon. I don't know if it's exactly sleep paralysis, but it's the thing where my head's awake but nothing else, you know? A few years ago I slept in a top bunk and saw a lanky shadow man sitting on my ceiling fan. I couldn't move but assumed it was just my mind fucking with me, so I went back to sleep. The shadow was still sitting there when I woke up again. I could move a bit better this time, so I flipped the bird and went back to sleep. Third time I woke up, it was still there. But it looked amused and moved as if it were laughing. It was weird when I went back to sleep again. Woke up in the morning and my shadow friend was gone. I didn't see it much after that. I told my family about it and named my new friend Charlie. We moved less than a year after that, so I assumed I left Charles behind. But right now I'm thinking he stuck around. Last year I would wake up to find my phone or headphones in the living room or bathroom, which is weird as hell. I still sleep on the top bunk. How the hell would I sleepwalk? I'm not saying it's impossible, but what a pain in the ass that would be, grabbing my things, climbing down a ladder, walking across a house to take a whiz, and then go back to bed? I don't know, that's just weird to me. The more paranormal stuff has started with quarantine. I see tall shadows walk from the living room to the kitchen, but when I get up to check, the kitchen would be empty. This happens every other day, the shadow going to the kitchen or the laundry room or my bedroom. Occasionally I find books in rooms I didn't leave them in, but stuff isn't moved too often. My sister says she's seen something, but I don't think she's seen the same thing. Today I heard a knock on the front door and the man muttering to himself, and I assumed it was a package or something. But then there was more knocking and muttering. I get up and check the door and there is no one there. And then I sit down again and there's more knocking and muttering. If there's something in my house, I don't think it's harmful. It's had every chance to. I don't know if Charlie followed me or if Charlie was just a dream or what. I've played ghost summoning games with my friends before, but I didn't think anything would come of it. What do you think? I'd love to learn more about this thing or even communicate with it, if there's even anything there. I talked to my sister and forgot to mention something. She and our younger brother were talking in the garage when she heard movement behind here, and our brother blurted, "Who's back there?" She turns around and of course no one's there. I wouldn't be surprised if it were a rodent, but still, creepy stuff. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 198. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Thank you very much for the chat who has been keeping me company as I recorded these stories. However, they did make me want pizza, and I still want pizza. Pizza. Anyway. Let's see, this goes up on Friday, so we'll probably have a gaming stream on Saturday. I do have things I need to do this week, so I'm trying to get the work actually done early. And I think I'll make it. I need to tend to the garden. That needs to be done. I got my new card in today because I lost the other one. It's in the house somewhere, or I get trashed in the washing machine, but it's not outside, so I'm fine with that. So I got the new one in. I need to remember the number on the new one, just in case of emergencies. And I'll need to top up my heating and power again, because I wasn't able to do that properly last week. And I'll have to change the number for that card on like Amazon and places like that, because that's like the only place I can think that I actually have my details saved. Which I don't do anywhere else, but I guess I just did it once and I've been using them for years, so I kind of trust it. Maybe. Anyway, with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.